Our next presentation will introduce the work of SAR, an architectural design studio based in Monterrey, Mexico, founded in 1980 and formally established as a professional firm in 2008. SAR focuses on the design and development of architectural projects comprising several scales and typologies, including experimental houses, architectural installations, educational buildings, furniture, and other objects such as books about architecture. An aspect of the firm's practice that especially engaged our jury's attention is embodied in the dual nature of its activity, embracing, quote, design and development, unquote. Architecture is for this firm no longer an art of indirection, wherein the architect makes an elaborate set of instructions to be carried out entirely by others. In many of its built works, we witness the palpable effect of SAR's active participation in the fabrication and construction process, imbuing these projects with refreshing immediacy and authenticity. We'll hear this evening from three of the firm's founders, Cesar Guerrero, Ana Cecilia Garza, and Carlos Flores, all of whom are graduates of and now professors at the Monterrey Institute of Technology.
Thank you for joining us tonight for this lecture. I would be a little nervous because this is the first lecture in English, but we will try to explain the projects and idea about. We're very happy to be here and be part of this year Emerging Voices program, and also have this great opportunity to share with you our work here in New York. We want to thank all the Architectural League team, and also Anne and Matt for all your attention. Thank you so much. My name is Cesar Guerrero, and she's my partner and wife, Ana Garza. And also our partner, Carlos Flores, is here in the room with us. Thank you for your support for all these years. And we have another partner, Maria Sevilla, which is in Mexico City right now. And we run a very small architectural design studio in Monterrey in the north of Mexico. And we usually work with 2 or 3 younger architects as collaborators in our studio. And most of them were our students in some of our academic workshops that we lead in some universities in Monterrey. And in behalf of all of them, and also the people who collaborate with us in the construction sites of our projects, we made a very small selection of works that we will share today. And because we think that they reflect very different interests that we have when we do architecture, and also they reflect the relationships of these works with very important issues in architecture as materiality and resources in nature and people, and also different kind of context, not just the sites where we are doing projects, but also a cultural and artistic and social context. Work is very related with the place where we live, but not just the city where we practice, but also the place where this city is, because understood like a bigger territory. If you take your car and drive like 1 hour, maybe 2 hours outside the city, you can find this kind of landscape, this kind of places. There are very lonely places where there's nothing there, but you very deserted places, and you can find this kind of mountains and these kinds of landscapes and this rocky formation. This is not so far, but this place is also a very natural place, very near of the city. It's called the Huasteca Park. But on another side, you can also find different environments with rivers and falling waters and lagoons. And this is very important for us because we spend a lot of time going out of the city. And it's important for us because our city is located in the middle of this kind of natural expressions and in this kind of natural topographic conditions. So we always, every day, are living this relationship between the nature and this human construction forming our city. The city is a mixture of these two forces, you know. So for us, very important what kind of architecture we will do in our city, because mostly of these structures are very commercial, just I don't know. And this reminds you this kind of Magritte's work, where everything is mixed up in the same picture. You have a little part of nature represented with these trees and small houses that represent architecture, but also another abstract elements there. And all this is in the same picture. So this is a very interesting phenomenon for us. But also the city gives us all the resources to do architecture, because our city has an old history, an old industrial history. Some of the biggest industries in Mexico and enterprises are located there, like Cemex, that is one of the most important business in the world about cement and concrete business. The same thing happened with the steel. There's a lot of commerce of these metal elements and production of a secondary industry from these materials. And the same happens with other industries, like the glass industry. So the projects that we will show you today talks about that kind of condition that we see in our city, and how can we transform that in architecture. This project is called Casa De Madera, but in English maybe it's called concrete house because it's almost made of this material. And it's located in the south part of the city, where you can find usually single-family houses. This is the kind of houses that you can see if you go there. There's big houses with a lot of elements, but like historical style elements and things. I don't know, that apparently you can think that's that old, but the really is that these constructions are not that old. So it's like a false interpretation of history. So, and in this project we have to work with this condition, make a house, a contemporary house, but that can't make some kind of dialogue with this context. But this is a picture where we started the construction, where we mark the foundations. And we were very interested in the relationship with the mountains in the back, like a visual contact, you know. So the house is very simple. It's squared, all made in concrete that is perforated to create interior spaces and have natural light to the interiors, and also create crossing ventilation to the space. And in the project is organized around the central patio that we usually we use a lot the patios in the projects, like design tool. So in this house you put all the social parts in one side of this patio, and in the other the private parts. And in the exterior, the house is very simple too. There's just a wall that's perforated to create the entry door. But in the sections, the house is more open, and all the spaces are related with the central patio and also lateral corridors. And This house was made in a very handmade process to create the concrete elements. And as you can see, the technology to do the frameworks and all the construction is very basic, almost primitive, but we have to work with the resources that we have in the city. So the result is a structure that is very, it's not a perfect structure, it's a very handmade, I don't know, expression of architecture.
Another resource we used, we wanted to use for this project is the steel. We have a lot of history in the city using the steel. There are a lot of commercial business that they sell this material. So you can find a lot of workshops, metal workshops in the center of the city. These blacksmiths are doing the several doors and windows and fences, and they will sell them in the street. But most of these elements, they are more in a decorative way. The people are now buying for their construction more in prefabricated windows and doors. There are a lot of business now of prefabricated things. So this knowledge is losing time by time. So we wanted to work with one of these workshops. And he's called, the blacksmith is called Señor Yáñez. And he works with two of his sons. And we wanted to make very simple designs of the doors and the windows and the systems. Most of this process, we made it inside. We also make very simple systems that you can activate it with the hands, very manual systems, and they activate the windows. We also designed different systems to open the skylights to have a better ventilation for the bathrooms. And here the blacksmith made his own model in a real scale 1:1. And when we finish the design, he will install it here in the site. And we had, in this house, we had the opportunity to design different pieces of furniture. We made a garbage can for the outside of the house, and it's the same material we use for the fence. And it's also used as a urban bench for the people that are passing in the street, and they will sit, they're tired, they can sit a little bit in this bench, urban bench. And with the material we use for the frameworks to do the construction of the walls, we use a similar material of wood to do different chairs and cabinets and tables, and the doors are with the same material.
So this is the house in its context, and the mountains in the back. And the project is about the using of local labor and local resources as materials, but also as labor. No? Yeah. So the house is made with concrete and steel and glass mostly, but in some parts we also made it with reused parts of the other materials, like this piece of wood that leads you to the backyard and the terrace. And this is the central patio that connects the house with the sky. And also the social area can be extended to the patio, and is more open, and the private area is more closed. And also, and you have always the relation with the mountains in back. And the houses is very open. You have a lot of visual relationship between a lot of spaces there. You can see what's happening in other parts of the house. And the light of this for our work is very important, because we think that architecture is like activated with light, as the music instruments are activated by the air or something. The light makes that architecture can be lived. So we have the different kinds of light in this project, like this horizontal light that comes from the patio and from the lateral openings, but also vertical light that comes from the skylights. And we always are seeking in projects that have some kind of continuity in the materiality of the elements and also the modulation of the elements. And we think that this idea of respecting the light is very important in architecture, because we think that life is lived through the experience of the time, and the light and the shadow is what is make you that you have conscious that the time is passing. And this project, all the details are very simple, because we are not industrial designers. But we think that this is very important, that if you have the opportunity to design different parts of architecture, not just the main structure of the space, maybe you can make a more complete project. These are people who work with us in this project, this house. And it's very important for us to spend time in the construction site, talking with these guys about the process, about details, about how can we do different things for the projects to make it better, you know, and also keep learning from the people that sold and us and have a lot of experience. We think that's very important. Or in one hand have a lot of experience, but also in the other have the ability to make some kind of experimentation also. The second project belongs a series of projects that we do in our office that are more experimental. Mainly all of them doesn't have a client. We just design it and build it and propose to create reflections and to prove certain kinds of things that we were interested in do something with different materials or different techniques of something. So this is a very small project. This is called Casa De Madera. That is like wood house or wooden house. And this is located very close to the Casa site. And it's in an empty lot. And this place is very difficult to find an empty lot, because the city is almost all constructed right now. And the project's about several things. One of these things is about what happened if we see this all empty lot like the patio for this house, and what happens if the patio is bigger than the house in this project. And other thing is we want to experiment with the use of wood in construction, because in Mexico there is not a massively use of wood in construction in the structures. It mostly used in constructive processes, but just to create reinforced concrete elements or something. But now it's used commonly for construct houses or buildings. So only in certain parts of Mexico where you can find in the mountains this kind of cabins that you can rent for a weekend. So we decide to make a very small house, a minimal house, all made of wood. Sorry, and well, prove if we can introduce wood in some kind of projects in Mexico. And the project is very simple. We develop a structural section made of different elements of woods, from the foundations and the floors and the columns and roofs, and also the furniture is part of this structure. And the space is created by the repetition of this same element. So the house can have different sizes. And we constructed this prototype with the help of Gustavo and his brothers, because he was a lot of experience constructing houses in Texas. We spent some years working here in the US, and he helped us to make this structure in Monterrey in labs, maybe a week. very fast. And we complete the structure with glass panels. And the project also is about privacy, about intimacy, about the relationship between interior and exterior, and of course the different uses that you can have in just one space. Because this little house could be just a lecture room or a bedroom or a place for work, you know. It could be adapted to different authors. And also, the project has this continuity that I was talking about in the Casa here about modulation and about, I don't know, like if the material could, the structure and the material could create also the architecture in the project. We have developed very simple details also there.
Casa Vostok, this is called a steel house because it's mostly made with this material. This is one of our first projects, but it took us a lot of time to finish it, like 7 years. And because it's a project that it's in the outside of the city and it's a difficult access, so it was difficult to take the constructors and make this project. So here is, it's like a 30-minute drive from the Casa Osge, and it's in the outside. It's placed surrounded by mountains, with a group of mountains. It's called Sierra Madre, and here is the location of the lot, and it's in a small valley. It also has a very important river where it has its growth here in the mountains, and it's called Rio Santa Catarina, that it goes and crosses all the city. And most of the time, this river is without water, but in the months of July, August, and September, you can find it with a little bit of water. And it's also a site where some families, like countryside, live there. They have been there living generations. And this is the site. It has a spectacular view. It is in this land you have the sensation that you are surrounded by mountains, and it's also a place where you can go and rest. It's a place where it's a very quiet place, and they do a lot of sports. You can find extreme sport like climbing. People that are climbing, they are in bicycles and running or in motorcycles. So it's a very nice place to go and take a rest.
And we see this project like a very small house, weekend house, that is made of very simple elements. The main element is a house, and in the center has a public place, you know, a social space with a kitchen and a dining room, and two private parts in the sides. And have another element that is like an extension of the structure of the house. This is this part. That is like an abstract facade, or like a fence, some kind of fence. That in order to create a patio that belongs to the house, because the house is located in a very big space, in big outdoor. So we want that this element could give some kind of a scale to that space, creating this patio more related with the house, with the house experience. And then also this element gives some privacy to the house, because the house, the lot where this house is located is bigger, so you have another places to go and do different activities. The owner of this plot was using it like storage of different materials because of his business, and we decide with him to try to reuse some of this material, like this metal elements, by doing a very simple transformation process to create the structure of the house. So the structure is a very it's an horizontal piece that, in order to not compete with the mountains, and also lifted from the ground to keep the site as natural as possible, and also that the animals still passing beneath the house, and the plants grow there. And then we fill the structure with walls that creates different relationships between interior and exteriors and in the landscape. Of course, in the social area, in public area, you have a not more open relation with the landscape, and with the private areas, you have this framed views from the mountains. And in other projects in our office, and well, almost in all the projects in our office, we take inspiration from the city of what we see in the place where we live. So, for example, in this case, where we use this material that is usually it's commonly used to do these doors, and it's very popular because it's a material that is not expensive, and it's also very resistant, very strong. And we decided to use it in this project to make like a skin, an exterior skin to protect the walls of the projects and interiors. And we call that as like translating materials, make a translation of the material by taking from one context and using to make some parts of architecture in other. And this is Mr. Yanez installing this skin of the house. And this is the relationship between the house and his context, and these mesquite trees. And you have we want to make a very strong dialogue between this, the site and the architecture, but not by imitating the architecture, just by just putting an abstract piece there that is created with linear elements, and that make a dialogue by contrast with the curves, lines, and the organic forms of nature. Also, the color of the house works in the same way, because the mountains are practically white mountains and stones, and the house is black. So it's the house with this patio, and these all linear elements, vertical elements, also give all the language of the skin and the facade, abstract facade, and also the openings to the windows. So also the relationship between interior and exterior can be controlled, because you can change this facade by opening this manually. You can have different kinds of relationship with the landscape and with the patio, and also the landscape. That's different in the private rooms of the house. And we also use this very simple system that we can see in the rural houses that are in the area, and just making a rescue or something like that of these elements. And of course, like all the project was made in situ, so all the processes are not perfect. So we can see in the house a lot of scars in the skin, and a lot of details that are not controlled by us. But we think that it's very valuable that let these things in architecture, because this is like the history of the construction that creates architecture at the end. So. And when one of the sides of the house, you find this stair that leads you to the most beautiful part of the house. That is just a roof, an observatory to see the mountains and be related with nature. And you have all this structure that frames different views. And well, in this part you have this kind of experience to see the sunset and spend time with friends. And we think that architecture is about giving a memorable experience to people, so it helps to do that things.
Okay. We're going to talk about this last project that it's called Comunidad Vivex. It's a social project that we created in the office, and it's also a nonprofit organization. It's called Comunidad Vivex, that means community, housing in Mexico. It's like a mix of these three words. So these is the conditions that a lot of Mexican people live. You can find these people or this phenomena in the outside of the city. A lot of a group of families will go and take a land in an irregular form. So they will divide pieces of lot in an irregular form, and they will start to build their houses with materials that they will find in the garbage or in, as we say, there's a lot of industries in our city, so they can find materials that they will put them in the garbage also. They will give it as free for these people. So it doesn't have a real structure, and it's a very difficult conditions to live in. And it's also a very ephemeral house. Some of these people, if they are lucky and in some few years, they can have a more permanent house. This is the permanent house that they will do. They will change the materials they have for these more permanent materials, like block concrete or ceramic bricks or some elements of steel, because they are very cheap, these materials, so they can buy them and start doing by their own these houses. But the problem is that there's not an architect behind. So they have problems like they don't know how to do houses, and they will have difficult problems of lighting and ventilation, and also privacy in the interior. And the government needs has the obligation to do this social housing for the people that has access to a credit. But they give this responsibility to the housing developers. The housing developers, most of the time, they don't have an architect behind, but they have to design and construct a house. And this is mostly the type of houses that they will do. There are very small houses, and they also have difficult problems of lighting, ventilation, and also there's not enough space in the interior. And we think if we are all different, why do we have the same house? If we have different needs, different ideas, different dreams. So it's difficult for these people to live in these conditions. Also, because there is a benefit behind these housing developers. The houses are in a very bad conditions because they need to have more benefits for these sales. So in reaction about this problem, we designed our first editorial project that it's a book, a pocket book that it's called Catálogo Vivex, and it has the information about the social housing in Mexico, and it also has 13 different designs that we made. Some of them are very small from ephemeral projects. There are also to more permanent projects, a little bit bigger, and there's also a small group of housing. You can find these different designs with different materials and also different typologies. Some of them can be more flexible in these typologies, depending on the needs of the place. And also we have other typologies that you can be in a growth stage, in different stages you can growth. And the important thing of this is to show the people that they can have different options to make a house or a ephemeral house to the conditions that they have, and they can transform this project to their needs. So this is the first project we finished as Comunidad Vivex. It's called Casa Caja. It's called Concrete Block House. And it's, the project is located in the outside of the city. It's where the family could buy the land because it's a cheaper land. And this is the place, General Suazua. And this is the condition of the land. It was located in a place that it's starting to develop. And this is the family of Jesus. Jesus was part of the team of the construction in the house of Casa De Madera. When we were talking to Jesus, we find out that Jesus was always doing houses for the people, but he didn't have his own house. And this is the condition of a lot of people that work in the construction, because they're always changing in different constructions and different constructors. So it's difficult for them to have access to a credit. So most of these people are living in a rented room. All of the family is living in a rented room or in a land room. And for example, Jesus was living in the second floor of his mother-in-law. It was a landed room, and it has a difficult access and also difficult conditions to live in. Jesus is, in this picture, he's around 28 years old. And the first part of the methodology of Comunidad Vivex is to find the family, and that the family has to have his own land, his own lot, because it's important for us that he has a lot in a regular form. So Jesus and his family is buying the lot in about 20 years, and they are giving a very small amount of money month by month. So in the second part of Comunidad Vivex, we have to design the house for this particular family, these particular needs, and also for this particular site. So here is where we take the model, we explain the project, and we decide some changes with the family so that the family can visualize how it's going to be the house. And this is a lot. It's a very small lot, a regular lot that you can find in these places. It's 7 meters in front, and it has 15 meters length. And it's a house of 100 square meters. It has 15 the first floor and another 15 the second floor. And we decided to make a subtraction of a rectangle to the house, so that we created a patio. Most of these people construct all the lot, so they won't have ventilation and lighting. So it's important for us because they can have a better lighting and ventilation, and also it's a place where in the north of Mexico we use a lot to do barbecues, and we like party, so we invite friends or families, and it's a very common place to use it. So here we put all the service in one place, so it will be also cheaper, the construction. And you can find then the social area and the room. We put there a room because it's for his oldest boy, because he has a more independent life. And in the second floor, you can find a common area and 2 rooms for the girls and for the parents. And it's also important that we had a discussion with Jesus, and we think it's important to define the material that we're going to use. It has to be cheap, but Jesus has to know it well, because he's going to construct all the house. He's going to do everything. And in this house, you can find in the first floor is the social area that it's more open, so the light can come in this social area. And the second floor, it's more private, so you can control the view. And in this second part, we have to count all the materials and the different materials, and have to find sponsors that will give us the material, or we can find different people that will give us donations. Like sometimes our own clients will give us, and sometimes friends or families, and sometimes other nonprofit organizations. And when we have all the materials, now it's the job of Jesus and his family to construct their house. And this is a most important part of Comunidad Vivex because Jesus has to gather a group of people that will help him. Jesus has to work from Monday to Saturday, and Saturday and Sunday is the time he went to construct his house, all the weekends for 2 years. So instead of resting, he was working in his dream. And he also had to convince people to go and help him in a free way. So he was a very good leadership. And also his wife will go and give them food and for everyone. And his kid will see, his 3 kids will see all the process when his father is doing his house. So it was a very potential time for them. And also, Jesus had to learn different skills. He had to learn how to work with the wood. He made all the wood frames for the windows, and he made also all the doors. And the thing of the house is also to make an excuse to show different values for the people. Like Jesus had to learn also how to work in a team. He had to learn also how to control and the materials, so that they will be used as they had to. And it also had to have a lot of patience because he has 2 years working with in this project, and also leadership to convince the people and go to help him in a free way. So this is the first stage, we think, of the project, and is the house that Jesus with his families and friends made. We know that it's a first stage, and we don't know what's going to happen with this house. Maybe Jesus will paint it. Maybe he will do a 3rd floor. We don't know what's going to happen, but the important thing is that Jesus has a house for his family, and it has enough space to have a better life. And this is the patio where you can extend the different activities, and the private area, you can control the view. And for us, it's also important to give the most natural things, the natural light, so that Jesus doesn't have to spend money in an artificial light. And this is a 2nd floor, and the rooms, the girls, the boy. And this is the first stage also of the kitchen. And we think architecture can be an excuse to help this very powerful family, that they just need a little push. And with this project now, they don't have a debt, so they can start thinking about that scholarship of their kids, and to do a better family and a better growth of them. So.
And thank you. Well, up to date, we are another families finished our 3rd project under the Comunidad Vivex methodology, and also we're working with in a community in Escobedo, where all the people is involved in some different parts of the project. The women are cooking and selling food for funding the project, and also the local churches asking for donations for enterprises or individuals, and the men are directly involved in the construction of this in this community center because they have experience in construction. And also we're started to invite younger architects and another offices in Monterrey and Mexico to join us to this project and help a family to create a house, to design a house, and help them to have their own houses. So at the end, we think that architecture is a kind of tool, and of course, a tool has a materiality, physical qualities and shapes and forms. But we think that the important thing of a tool is that when you take that tool from the table to create things and to make some kind of changes and give some very different message but very different in each project. So that's what we are trying to do with our work. Thank you for your time.